So you touched a little bit on communication. I just want to dive a little bit more into that. Like, how can employees communicate safely, or what's a good rule of thumb for that when they're wearing hearing protection?
It's kind of funny because over the years, when I really focused on hearing protection as a manufacturer, this came up all the time. Uh, I can't hear anything when I'm wearing my hearing protection. Well, congratulations, that is the point of what you're doing. But to your point, it can be a challenge when you're communicating. So it all depends on your environment. If you're in an environment whereby the noise is not as intense and you can get away with a particular plug or a muff that has some form of verbal communication built into it, by all means, it's a wonderful thing. So there's a lot of technology out there. We might as well leverage it because, we can do just about everything else, it seems. Why not have an earmuff that will get rid of all the bad noise and allow speech through? So that can be done. Same thing, even when it comes to plugs. What I'm seeing from some manufacturers is there's plugs designed for communication so that it filters out anything on the low end of the spectrum, but it's saving the voice spectrum.
Okay.
So it would be advantageous to do that if you can do that in your environment. I mean, obviously, if you're in a double protection environment, there's really nothing to it. You can't expect communication. Then you have to adapt. Then you're working with lights or hand signals or whatever it takes for communication. But that in itself, overprotection can be a hazard as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that just goes to show another important component of these, hearing management programs or noise management programs is to think about that. How will communication work, and have something kind of built and processes laid out for that in advance.
Exactly.
Awesome. So to kind of wrap up this conversation about noise, I wanted to take it to the home arena, right? We kind of touched on it earlier that noise isn't just an issue in safety sensitive or industrial work environments, but it's also something that we come into contact with in our daily lives. So what about hearing safety at home? Like what kind of situations would prompt the need for hearing protection in our personal lives?
I like this question because it reminds me of many conversations that I have with clients where they turn around and go, you know what, Tyler, I can control what they're exposed to for the 8 hours that they're on shift here. As soon as they jump into their pickup truck and they throw on some Metallica at top volume, there's nothing that I can do. So the challenge here is that we need to make sure that we're practicing what we preach at home. So when we are outside and we are, operating firearms, we're wearing appropriate protection. If we're lighting fireworks or firecrackers, that, if we're close, we're wearing hearing protection. If we're even at a racing event in the crowd or in the stands, then we're wearing hearing protection. So there's a lot of different things that can impact us from our environment, whether we're just trying to get a job done at home, like mowing the lawn or doing some woodworking or using machinery in the garage, all the way to, hey, let's go for the weekend and we'll go, operate a firearm or take in a racing show or whatever the case is. So we need to make sure that we are protecting ourselves at home. One that we need to make sure you're protecting yourself with, Chelsea. I'm under the impression that babies crying can be extremely
loud. Oh, my baby has just learned that he can shriek and scream. So yes, it is high pitched, and sometimes I think I need hearing protection for that.
Well, that's okay. I'd like to tell you that it gets better, but my 16-year-old can do the same thing.
Well, it's funny. One of the very first baby things we bought before my son was born was the little baby hearing protection, like the little earmuffs. Nice. Because, we were planning on, and it hasn't really come to fruition, COVID and all that, but we were like, maybe we'd still like to go to the movies from time to time, and we might have to take him, and that can be very noisy. The decibel level in the movie theater, I'd be curious to know how that registers, because it is loud sometimes.
Well, you let me know. We'll hook you up with a meter.
Perfect. Especially Fast and the Furious, the new one's coming out. I bet you that's not going to be a quiet movie.
No, for sure. So we certainly want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves at home. What I found really interesting on the internet, it's easy enough to find the noise thermometers, and those are a great tool to educate your team members. They're probably not looking for it on Google, so you certainly can, and you can show them what a noise thermometer looks like, and it'll show, here's an occupational noise at 125 decibels. Here's a noise that at home that you're probably getting exposed to that didn't know is 110 decibels, right? Like a baby cry. So
right. Awesome. Well, I found this to be very informative. Definitely you outlined the steps for employers to take. Some of those were great resources for them. I think you'd be an amazing resource. So definitely, employers, workers, if you have questions about noise management, PPE, you can reach out to Tyler direct. You can reach out to me and I can facilitate that. So before we wrap up this noise segment, any final thoughts about noise, hearing protection, anything you want to share?
Chelsea, first and foremost, thank you again for inviting me to this, because it's great to be able to sit down and chat with you about something that's near and dear to my heart, because for years it's been a challenge to spread the word when it comes to noise. I guess the biggest thing that I can impart upon those watching is that noise-induced hearing loss isn't just getting old. It isn't just, hey, I'm old. This is bound to happen. No, most of this is completely preventable. So there will be some deterioration with age, of course, but in general, you need to take those steps to protect yourself. And maybe it doesn't make sense today. Maybe you're not too worried about it because you can hear really well. But the goal, I believe, for every OHS and professional and distributor and partner that we have is that you can hear your grandkids and you can have those conversations with them when you are retired and you're done your job. You put your years of service. So let's make sure that we're protecting ourselves and protecting others by wearing the appropriate types of protection. And then we're mindful of the noise and substituting out what we can when we can.
Right. Well, like you said, this, and like we talked about earlier, this is not reversible. So you might be feeling great now and your hearing might be great now, but if you start to lose it over time, more than age, will help you to do, you don't get that back, right?
100%. And for anybody who's curious, there's lots of resources online. Please feel free to poke around. What you'll find is that noise-induced hearing loss is well documented. There's a lot of information. If you want to get scientific and technical, once you start to lose let's call them the little hairs in the cochlea, they don't grow back. So it's just damaged. And a cochlear implant, I'm sure you don't want that procedure. So again, do everything you can to protect yourself and others.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tyler. That was super informative. Appreciate your time. For those of you watching, stay tuned. We do plan some more segments with Tyler where we're going to address things like respiratory protection and air quality. So stay tuned. Thanks, everyone.